All right. Hello, folks. Welcome to another pairing stream. Apologies for the delay. StreamYard has bad UI. You tell it to, if you accidentally click on end stream, it won't say, "Are you sure you want to end the stream?" Unlike any other tool where the action is destructive and completely ends the stream and causes you to have to completely recreate a new stream from scratch because you can't copy anything. So if they don't improve that soon, I will not be renewing. So that's my frustration for this morning. Hope you're doing better, Mike. How's it going? You're muted for some reason.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, I fixed it.
There we go.
Doing well. You know, you're on a Jitter TED stream and we got a rant.
Yeah.
So, but out of the gate.
Usually it's a more happy rant as opposed to a very frustrated at a tool that really should know better.
True.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, no, that was a train wreck.
But we're here. And
hey.
hello, Suiji. Welcome.
Hey, Suiji.
So yesterday we had started off sort of thinking about using a library versus writing our own, and I'm glad we went the route of writing our own, because there were some really interesting refactorings, and it may not have been the most efficient way to get the feature done, but I think there were some really good examples of TDD breaking things down to small pieces, taking small steps, and then backing up when things don't go exactly as we want. And I talk about this a lot on various social media, and I get a lot of, let's say, feedback on TDD and the process of doing it, and things like that. And it's, speaking of sort of frustration and rants, I'm like, look, I've got 700 hours of me doing this, either alone or as a pair, and clearly it works because we end up with almost no bugs. If you think that it doesn't work, well, I have 700 hours that proves that it does. And if you think there's an alternative because you have a better way of doing it, then great. You go and show that on video and show us. Because I'm really tired of folks saying, well, that doesn't work. We do it this other way that's much better. And then they never actually explain, other than at some hand wavy level, here's what we do. And it's frustrating because, like, maybe they do have a better way. Maybe their way works. Probably in some, like most things, TDD doesn't work everywhere. And so maybe their method and process works really well for them. Well, then tell us what it is, and show us what it is, because it's really frustrating that there's potentially a different way to do things that might be just as good, but I can't learn it because you're not giving me enough information. And so basically it's, long story short, TLDR, put up a shut up, right? Put up a video that walks through a realistic example of you doing your process, where you end up with just as much maintainability and quality as I do, or stop posting about it. So that's my real rant, as opposed to the just software frustration.
Here. Huzzah.
Yeah. And because I recognize that, like, TDD is hard for all the reasons that, even you and I struggle with it, because it's not TDD per se. It's breaking things down and figuring out what you want and how you're going to test it and how you might reorganize things. But it works. And so if there's a better way, I want to know about it, but nobody's ever shown it. So there you go. So let's see where we're at. I think we had updated Jira at the end of our last episode to leave us some good restart points. So let's take look at where we're at.
We had added, well, we rewrote JIRA 67, and then
Right,
we added JIRA 70. 67, we're talking about supporting the remaining columns,
right.
release type, and the other three themes. And then we also came across or observed the column index of,
Right, right.
and where is that in here? Oh, it's at the caller level.
It was in the parse individual song.
Right.
Hey there, Manoj. Welcome from India.
There it is. So this
Right,
duplication
right.
indicates primitive obsession.
Yes. Or certainly, even if you're not one isn't familiar with primitive obsession or the different code smells, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I overfit everything into primitive obsession because, but it's sort of part of this. Really feels like there should be a class here that has this behavior, um, and mainly for if nothing else for uh, testability. Like we know column index of header with artist works because we substituted 0, which was a hard coded column, with some computation, which is a general way of increasing generality in code, right? We replace a constant with some kind of computation or decision making, and so we knew that worked, but it's that testing at a distance problem, which is, well, are we sure it's going to work when we swap columns around? Well, in order to do that, we had to, right? If we were only interested in testing column index of, in a sense, which we were, we had to write a fair bit more test code because we had to, yeah, like exactly that. We had to have the header and the thing, and then write this and create that and do that, and then finally look to see if it was successful or not. I think later on we actually compare against one of the other tests. We compare actually against what it parsed and make sure that it parsed it correctly, even though it was out of order. Um, and that's really awkward. Uh, and so, sort of another rant is people say, "Oh, unit tests are too hard. They're too brittle, and I'm just going to write more integration tests." Like, you can certainly do that, but you will not be able to. Your tests will be more complicated. There'll be more setup. There'll be a little bit more difficult ways to get access to what you want to check and validate. Um,
They'll be
and then
fragile.
yeah, and then it's harder. Sorry, what did you say?
And they'd also be fragile. Because,
Actually, at that level, no, I don't think so. In fact, the claim is that they would hide some of the implementation
oh,
detail.
I see. Yeah.
So that is actually not wrong at this level, right? Not necessarily end to end, that's going to be more brittle. But at this level, you could certainly say, although I wouldn't call this an integration test, I'd call this a sociable test. But whatever you want to call it, the fact that there are multiple objects involved or multiple pieces, one could say that if I wanted to test column index of, I would have to test it indirectly. But that's fine because then I don't care that there actually is a column index of. And to a certain extent, that's correct. But once we are relying on column index of, I might feel uncomfortable of, for example, what does it do when it doesn't find it? Well, we actually saw what happened is it returns -1. And then when we try to access -1 of an array, that doesn't work. And so the failure modes become harder to figure out. Like, how do we do and test? Because one of the things that we as software engineers probably don't do enough of is testing failure modes. I know I don't. I'm guilty of that as anyone because it's hard. Because it's like, oh, I got to write stuff that's not sort of the happy scenario and getting things done and providing value directly. And so it's much harder to do the failure modes at a distance because you have to add in all this other stuff just so you can put this column index of little piece of functionality in a certain state. And then you have to check it in a very awkward way by catching an exception. Versus if we could directly test column index of we would write a method, well, column index of, here's the header that doesn't have the thing, and look for the thing. We should get -1. Or maybe we want something better. I don't know. So whenever somebody says, oh, I just want to use integrate quote integration tests without defining what they mean by that. And that's my other, I'm certainly ranty this morning. Like if you're going to use these terms, and you got to give us examples. Like to say unit tests suck and integration tests are much better because they're less brittle. I'm saying, good, show me an example. So apparently put up or shut up is my mantra for today. So all that being said, whether it's primitive obsession or not, my solution to the question of how do I test this private method is almost always, can we push this private method to be a public method on some smaller object?
Right.
And so whether you come at that through primitive obsession or something else, that's sort of the real question is, how do I test this thing more directly?
Right, exactly. So what do you think? Going back to Jira, do we want to tackle the primitive obsession first, then support the other columns, or the other way around?
I don't know. I don't have a strong.
I mean, I think I got the sense at the end of last stream, which was actually only yesterday.
It was only yesterday.
It seemed like folks were kind of interested in seeing how we solved that. So I
think we'll get. I mean, I think we'll get to both.
Yeah.
But I think if we solve the primitive obsession earlier, it will make implementing the other columns easier. Because one of the things we're going to have to do is say, okay, we're now looking for release title. What do we do if it's not there? And in fact, column index of may not actually be the right level of abstraction. Because what do we do with the information that it returns is we basically then use that as an index in the columns. But that might be too low level.
Right. We might want something more along the lines of give us the data we need.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
y'all hide the implementation from me.
Yeah.
Please.
Right. And so whether we push in the entire, just the TSV song raw string, or whether we push in the columns array, either way, it would be nice to have a method that says, give me the data for this column name. And then we have a good default that it can return, which is empty string.
Right. So in a way, it does feel like primitive obsession, because here we are in the parse song method, and we're saying, hey, can you let me know what index has this? Right. And so it's like, hey, other thing, tell me what index is, because I'm going to use it later to find out literally the name of the artist. Right. And so there's a fair level of, or lack of abstraction.
Yeah.
And a bit too much indirection.
Yeah. And a lot of detail. Like,
yes,
I honestly don't care about the index. I just care about the data.
Right.
So let's solve the primitive obsession.
Yeah. Sounds good. I will move the sticky into the in progress column. Oh, kill me now. Okay. So
since this is a refactoring, we should make sure that all our tests pass.
They do, and I will run them again. I ran them during the running of the intro theme.
So
run that fast? It's crazy.
What? You mean the test ran too fast?
They did. I was like, did they run? It was actually too fast.
Well,
not really, but yeah, it made me go, did I?
They actually run pretty fast, yeah, because it's all
yeah.
compiled. We haven't changed any code, so there wasn't any recompilation necessary.
Yeah.
That's usually the slowest part. That and setting up the JVM is to run the test is the slowest part. Everything else is super fast.
Yeah.
So I think what we want to do first is sort of raise the level of abstraction of the column index of method, right? Because what we really want, like you said, is we just want the data. Like given this header, here's the column name, the name of the column we want for the data, and then just give us either the data or an empty string. I'm thinking of two different directions.
Okay.
One is we could refactor that constant of the empty strings there on line 71 into something that calls in the new method. But I think that might be too, that almost feels like new behavior. But I could but I have this so sort of figuring out, the small steps along a path. One path is we end up with a method that says, uh, data for column or something like that, whatever we call the method, and we give it the header, the name, and the columns. And for this column, which would be release type,
I believe it is,
or release title, it would give us an empty string. But that would be behavior. We'd have to be writing.
We're not testing it. Yeah, we haven't tested that.
Yeah, and so in this case, though, because of the incoming test that tests this method, we expect the empty string there. But if we go down that path, along the way, we're writing code somewhere that says, if the index is -1, then return an empty string, and that's new behavior.
Right.
So going down that path is actually implementing some new behavior. Whereas going down the path of let's raise the level of abstraction of that code, I think is probably better.
And we would push it into a new class.
Yeah, so we'd push it into a new method, and then we'd figure out what the class is, and then move that over.
Makes sense.
Hey there, Tom Fan Van. Welcome.
Howdy. Welcome.
So let's do that. So let's start with extracting the variable on that. Yeah.
Extract those to locals.
Yeah. Yeah.
I assume that's what you were looking for.
Yeah. And then you can inline the artist column so that it's all one thing.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm going to practice my control W.
Well, if you're extracting a variable, you don't have to select it all.
Oh, you're right.
Yep.
We'll leave that one. Now this one's going to be interesting. I guess we would do it at this point.
Yeah, right now we're not handling new themes. We're not handling multiple themes. We're handling the one theme.
Yeah. I don't know what to do on this one.
Yeah.
This one you can tell.
This one, I think, because it's at the end, I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's kind of my take.
Yeah.
Well, it's all automated, so everything should still pass.
Yeah. And then inline the column index stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so what we've done is we've basically created not quite a new abstraction, but preparing for a new abstraction, because we now have on the left side the variable that we want with the content we want. So we want to have artist, song title, theme 1. And then we can extract the rest of that line into another method. And you don't have to select here either if you want to extract to method.
Whoops. Oh, that's interesting. I never do that. Scroll to center, Control M. What does that do?
It takes your
It
current line and
moves.
scrolls at the center. Yeah.
I see. Got it. Okay, so from here I want.
And now you can, yep.
Now, what do we want to call this puppy?
So we probably want to call it the general name, even though it's going to use it extracted artist. We'll introduce a parameter on that. So yeah. So what do we want to call this? This is extract column. Let's start with that.
What is it? Extract a column? Extract a cell in a column.
Extract. Well, we're only working on one row, so there's no. Let's go with extract column, and I know it's not great, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
And then let's introduce parameter on artist. And again, you don't have to select because so most of the refactorings you don't have to pre-select.
But it does give you the expression to say which one do you want.
Exactly.
I was going to say extract column value, Sweetie. That was the next thing out of my mouth, but we decided to punt. So value is so generic.
Yeah, that's what like yeah. You want to do introduce parameter, not variable.
Oh, right.
So P, not V, not V.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. This would be the column header, maybe column name. Column name sounds actually okay.
Yeah, actually, I think.
Yeah, let's do that.
I like that. Whoop.
Now, this is what I was hoping IntelliJ would do. It's like, oh, look, you generify this method. Would you like me to replace all these other occurrences? And absolutely, we do. You can just click all.
I like the. I have the.
That's
joy
fine. You can go one by one.
The joy. Yeah, it's like it's like it's
like woohoo, woohoo.
Yeah, woohoo. Exactly.
Yeah. So this is the standard process that I follow for doing these kinds of refactors. You extract the method, introduce parameter to generalize it, and then rely on IntelliJ to find what are now basically duplicates. And then once that happens, we can then look to see how we can take that method and see where we can move it. So let's run our test. This was all automated, so shouldn't have changed anything. But our tests run so fast. Why not?
Oh, good.
And just a meta note: when your tests, and sometimes when you work on legacy code, you may not be able to run all your tests, right? So maybe you're doing TDD, but you're doing it sort of in this bubble of stuff where you're able to TDD, but you can't run all the tests because some of those tests are slow. But inside your bubble, if you can get a sort of a bubble set of tests around what you're working on to run fast, you're going to run the tests more frequently because you're not going to have to wait. It's not going to take away your context and blow it up and then takes you 15 minutes to get back into it, which is what happens when a test takes 5 minutes to run. And it's this sort of reinforcing cycle where if you can run the test more frequently, you're going to run the test more frequently, which means if you're taking smaller steps, you can run them more frequently, even if you know if everything works because they run so fast.
Yeah.
But then, like you were saying yesterday, it's like feedback loops. That means if you do make a mistake, which you will, you'll find out much sooner, which means you won't go down a road where you're now in mistake having been made mode and having to figure out. And then it's 10 minutes later, it's like, oops, what did I do in the last 15 minutes that caused it, as opposed to in the last minute.
And you can affect that by taking advantage of run configurations.
Right? Yes, and so this is where you slice up your application, and when you're working on legacy code, you're going to slice it up into, here's my sort of TDD tests that run really fast because they're all running in memory with no IO, and then here's the larger set of tests which I do want to run. And maybe I do that only before I do a commit, or maybe I run those sort of on a larger cycle. And then there might be a set of tests that take much longer, that maybe I don't even run. I just push it and let the continuous integration system run them.
Exactly.
So Stupendous Follow asks, does Spring have some kind of continuous testing like Quarkus? It does not. I've heard about Quarkus's continuous testing. I actually don't know what that looks like. I have to re-add it to my list to take a look at. But I suspect it's not going to fit well with the way I do things because I like to segment my tests, but that's just a guess based on very little information. So I need to go verify that. But Spring by itself does not have anything like that. IntelliJ does. They added something recently which I keep forgetting to use in earnest. Somewhere there's continuous testing, but I don't know what it's called. It's clearly not called continuous testing. So I'll have to check that out. And I know there is a plugin, Infinitest, which will basically every time you make a change, will rerun all your tests. I like, I don't know. I guess that would be nice if it did it automatically. The problems I've had in the past with something like that is it runs it too fast. Oh, so apparently it's a rerun automatically. Okay. Is like I'm a bit of a control freak, so I want a little bit more precision about when those tests get run. But again, it's something that I need to just play with. And to your other question, Stupendous Follow, when making a new repository, is a good idea should make one for every entity? No. You want one for every aggregate. You want one for the things that you're going to store and retrieve. And it's unlikely, unless you have a trivial domain, it's unlikely that you're going to have that on a per entity basis. But that's one of those, it depends. But I recommend, if you're not familiar with aggregates from domain-driven design, that you look into that. And there's, I think in our Discord, in our domain-driven design channel, I think we've got some references.
Back to it. Oh.
Yeah, so this is one of those things that, like anything else, right? New features, new language features, new IDE features, anything, or even just new techniques. It's good to try them out and see what they feel like before making arbitrary decisions about whether you like it or not. So that's on my list, is rerun automatically and look more into Quarkus's continuous testing. All right. Our test pass. And that's the other thing about fast running tests, is like, if you do lose your context for a bit because you get on a tangent, it's very easy to just say, can you just run the test again and let's make sure we're okay, because I don't remember what happened last time. And okay, they passed, and because it takes so little time. So now that we've extracted that, now I think we have a pretty good abstraction for what we want. So do we like that in terms of the parameters?
Well, it depends what we extract to, right? For example, if there was a header class.
Yeah, so let's say if our abstraction, whatever we extracted to header, would be in the constructor likely. And so it might be a column mapper. And then, so headers in the constructor, and then would we even
pass columns, because we could put that in the.
So would the columns go as a parameter or as part of the constructor? It feels like we're
What
going
is
to
columns
call the
again?
same header thing with multiple different. So in this scope, there's just one set of columns.
Because we're
But
parsing only one song.
Yeah, but I think at the higher level, the parse all, when it extracts the header, would create the mapper. And what we get here instead of the string of header is the mapper.
You're talking about this point in
Right.
parse all.
Right. So basically, and we haven't done that yet because we haven't finished the other handling the columns. But basically, the idea is that header would be the first line from that list, but then we'd create a column mapper from it,
Right.
and pass that into parse song. So I think that works fine. So the question is do we return an? I think I can't. That feels like I'm trying to predict without enough information.
Yeah, it does.
Like I can see it in my head what it might look like, but let's. I think we should just take it one step at a time. So I think the next step is to extract a column mapper.
Okay. Before we do that, can we move parse song underneath parse all?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because to me, it's
don't even need to ask.
Yeah. Because it feels like it should be right after all.
Yeah, totally.
Because all that other stuff is sort of mini
just support stuff.
implementation details. Yeah. Okay. So now, actually, now I'd like to move extract column and those guys up too.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that more manual way. Okay. So you were saying next up is to.
So we want to, let's see, how can we do this through refactoring?
Would we make a header class out of the string first?
Since it's a could we create a parameter object out of that? That's an interesting way to go, or at least try. Because normally the situation I'm in where I'm solving primitive obsession is there's a field called header, and then it makes it easy because then you can basically take that field and wrap it up in a delegate and then move stuff over. I haven't done it this way where it's not a field, so I don't know if this will work, but let's try it. So I think if you,
but you could also do that, right? Parse all. Oh, we don't have the header yet.
I mean, we certainly could convert header to a field and then follow the typical steps, but I'm curious if this is going to work. So let's do, before we do anything else, since this is going to be a little bit of a spike, let's do a commit.
Yeah.
There, Jonas.
How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
No worries, Jonas. And you missed the problems I had this morning with StreamYard, so no worries. Which is, yeah. So glad you could make it no matter when.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that So I've played with Wallaby a bit. I don't know its speed. I'm used to things running really fast, and so James Shore has his test runner, which sort of runs constantly and has sounds, um, which I really like. I think that software. I feel like software has regressed a bit and doesn't use sound enough. Like it can be annoying, but I think there's certain sounds that basically add, what you see and what you can read, but sound can provide sort of a non-intrusive information as long as it is non-intrusive. It's what I like about James Shore Runner, and then I actually wrote a little extension for JUnit. Is it plays sort of a happy sound if the test pass or a sad sound if the tests fail. Because really, I don't need to see the output except when tests are failing, and that's when it's useful. But sometimes just the sounds is good enough. Yeah, I have to put my sound thing into open source. I'll have to add that to my list. So let's try to extract parameter object on that header string.
That
So
one I did not have.
Yeah, I don't think I use that so
Sharing.
rarely.
Not even a share.
And there's no shortcut for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think we want to call it what it does, not what it is. And so I'm thinking column mapper, even though that's not a great name. It's not a header class because it's not about
the header.
Not just about the header. It's about using the header to extract specific columns by name. Let's see. Package name. We'll leave it in application for now. So the parameters we want to extract is really just header. Not the columns, not the column name, because those are going to change depending on the parse song. So let's try this. See what happens.
Okay.
All right. And so what did it do?
Made a record.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
it did new.
Interesting. Good. So now,
Would we extract one to a local variable and then use the local instead of?
I think the signature for extract column. So what we need to do is inline column index of, because we want to basically move this chunk, and IntelliJ won't move multiple methods that are dependent.
Right.
So we sort of have to wrap it up in I always think of packaging it up into a nice box, and then you can unpack the box on the other side.
Yeah. So we'll inline and remove all.
Yeah. And that's the only usage, so that should be fine.
Yeah.
So now, so in this kind of refactoring process, when we're trying to move, right now what we've got is feature envy. When we have feature envy, because we're basically, and we can tell we have feature envy because in line 52, we're basically asking column mapper, give me your header. And that's bad. Give me your header so I can do some stuff with it. But really, we don't want to do that. But because it's a parameter, now we can try move method, which is F6. And so it's asking what is going to become the this, and it's column mapper. So there's really only one choice, and escalate should be fine.
Right.
And so now we have an extract column method that does the right thing. How do we
I
know?
forget.
We should,
Do you like
yeah,
this in your
yeah,
design?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I thought so. I do too, but I
yeah.
wanted to check.
So let's go back to TSV song parser there. So now what we have is new column mapper header extract column, and so that's very close to what we want. But let's run the test to make sure that that step worked.
Oh, I thought I did it. Let me try it again. Oh, what? Oh, wrong
F10,
F button.
F12,
Yeah, they're all the
whatever. They're
same.
all the same. All right, so test pass. And so now what we want to do is we want to push out as a parameter the new column mapper header, because what we want parse song to accept is not header and then recreate new column mapper every single time. We'd like to create that once, but it shouldn't be the responsibility of this method to do that. And so let's introduce parameter. And yes, replace all three occurrences. And here we'll see some magic. Maybe.
Was I too early?
No, that's fine. Yeah, column mapper. And interestingly enough, it didn't get rid. Oh, because we're analyzing on line 39 if the header is empty. That's why I was expecting it to drop the first parameter.
Ah.
Um,
Well, we have to.
So again, it's like I'm always seeing, like, you know, the different possibilities. So one is we could say this is fine and we'll get rid of header later. The other possibility is
Have column mapper take that responsibility.
it's kind of a dead responsibility. It's an obsolete responsibility, and that's
Oh, right.
so
We're getting rid of it once we
yeah.
get.
Once we do all the mappings, then we will be able to get rid of it. So I was thinking, like, oh, maybe we move some idea of is empty into column mapper, um, which would make sense if we wanted to keep that behavior around. But I think because it is so temporary, that we'll just leave it as is. And then what we can do, yeah. And so then what we can do up on line 28 is now extract new column mapper to a variable, because we only need to instantiate it once.
Containing block?
Um,
Oh, it's doing the whole thing.
you did extract variable and it didn't let you
Thought I
select
did.
that?
Let me do it. Yeah, when I did it without selecting.
Oh, it's asking you for the target code block. We want the containing block. It's basically saying, where do you want the variable scope defined? So that's why it's target as opposed to sort of the extract portion. And that's fine, yeah. Yeah.
So we only do this once because we only need to do it once, the creating of the mapper.
Yeah, so Luigi, that's probably our an upcoming step, is to default the header once we get the full mapping. I mean, I guess we could even do that next, but I wanted to sort of get it out of here. But yeah. So let's run a test. That should still work.
Clearly, F12 is my new target for my finger. Okay.
All right. So I think we're done with the refactoring. So can we look at column mapper?
It's still a record.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
No point in, I mean, we could create a class and then it's just gonna
Why is it showing gray?
because it's out of date. I don't trust IntelliJ grayness because it usually means there's some indexing glitch. What we do want to do though is put the header column split into the constructor, which means we want header columns to become a field. Actually, we want the list to become a field. So let's change the name of list to be header column list. I hate that suffix, but we got to differentiate it from the other thing. Let's go with that for now.
Columns plural.
Well, header columns is the array list.
Oh,
that's why I was saying we need something different.
Differentiate. Right.
We could swap it. Let's swap it because that the header the list is going to become our field. So let's call this parsed header columns, or just header column array. I don't know.
Well, this
because they're both parsed.
This, then we don't have array and we're doing the
Yeah.
pseudo Hungarian.
And then let's rename that to header columns.
Yeah, agreed.
And then we need to create a field for header columns because we'd like to access that as the field.
Is that Control Alt F?
Yes, and I'm not sure what it's going to do. I think it doesn't make sense for it to be a record anymore. But that's fine. Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah, basically you can't have an instance field. So let's undo that. Let's convert it to a class, and then let's do the right thing, or do the thing. Last option. Because this will make it more clear now that we want to do that. So what you want is, yes, that. And then we want to do that 16 and 17. We want to actually do that in the constructor. There's not going to be a refactoring to do that. So cut and paste.
But header, okay, yeah, that'll work. Okay.
Yeah, you'll have to do some finagling. What I would say is inline the header.
You don't think the cut and paste worked?
No, it worked, but it's this weird thing. So go ahead, redo it. Redo what you did.
Oh, okay.
Because you asked, did that work? And I said yes, but it's weird, right? Because we now on line 13, we're accessing header through the accessor as opposed to just directly accessing it. We don't need the header. Once we process the header, we don't need it anymore. So we actually don't want to save it. So let's inline the call to header, the method. Yeah. And remove the field, remove the method. Yep. Oh, it inlined the wrong one. That's fine. We'll just go ahead.
Redo it again?
Yeah, redo it.
Okay. I was inlining, right? Yeah.
Drop the this in front of it. And then let's get rid of the field. I don't think you're going to be able to do that because you're using it in line 12, but let's see.
Want to try it?
Let's try it. It's probably going to complain, but maybe it'll, yeah.
4 usages. Okay. So the other approach is
get rid of that.
Then do this.
Yeah, and so the reason why it's still used is it's used in the equals and hash code. This is not an entity class really, so we don't need equals and hash code right now. So we can just get rid of that.
ToString as well?
Yeah, get rid of toString because it won't have header either. And now you can get rid of that. Okay.
There we go.
Let's run our test, make sure we haven't broken anything because we did a little bit of manual work there. All right, all good.
Looking good.
We can make just to make IntelliJ happy and me happy, we can make the header columns list final, the field final. And we could optimize this class. We could, instead of having a list, we could create a map, basically a reversed indexed map. But I think that's an optimization we can leave for later. All right, so let's go. So our goal has been achieved, right? We've basically extracted the behavior, and now we could write some tests around what happens if it's not found. And I think we should do that because we're going to need to use, because the rest of the columns, they're optional. We need to be able to support that.
Will we generate a test class from here against
Sure.
mapper, or were you thinking something else?
No, column mapper test is going to be fine. Yeah, that's all good.
Okay.
Oh, that didn't matter.
Okay.
Yep.
Move this up above. Oh, results up here. We need that? No.
No, we don't need that.
Close it.
So I think we're going to need some tests around I mean, we could backfill some tests, but I think we don't need to. We can focus on sort of new behavior. So I think what we want is
if we have a column that's empty
basically if we
or
ask,
doesn't exist.
Yeah, if we ask for a column that doesn't exist, should get an empty string.
I don't like. It's an okay first name, but I feel like I should refine that name.
I think it's it's fine. It's a I had this discussion, I think, on my stream the other day. There are sort of two forms, putting aside punctuation and underscores and other possibilities. There's either sort of a given when then like way of structuring this,
Right.
which is the context, the situation first, and then the outcome. Right. So column that doesn't exist is the situation, the context. Returns empty string is the outcome. There's the other form, which I think I am finding more useful, which is outcome first. So empty string returned if column doesn't exist. And the reason why I am leaning more that way these days is just I'm finding that when I'm looking for behavior to change, I'm looking for the actual behavior, which is why did I get an empty string? I'm not often thinking of, oh, given this situation, what happens?
Like that?
Yeah.
And that's of the structure.
That's that outcome.
Outcome first.
Outcome given context. And So what I'm trying to be more aware of is when I'm looking for tests, what am I looking for? Right? Because when you're modifying behavior, you're often saying, well, what does it do now? And I'm trying to be more aware because I'm trying to think about what I'm looking for because I want to optimize for the looking,
Right.
not for the creation.
Right. So like for example, what you mean is like say here, if I want to scan these test names,
Right. It's like, find me the test where we get a failure when there's not a header row.
right. And
It's
it's like,
hard.
yeah, it's like how do you find it? Whereas if you make it the first part,
Right. If you say
yeah, interesting way of
exception
thinking about it.
thrown when no header row, you still, at least now you're looking. I mean, you could group up your failure ones and that into nested classes, and that might help look for failure ones. Um, but if it's missing a header column that's required, where's the test for that? So anyway, just food for
Yeah,
thought,
I like it.
and because it's been one of my test organization and test naming has been something that I don't feel like I have figured out. So,
I'm in agreement on that. I'm in the same.
all right. Um, should we
Okay.
write the failing test and then take a break?
Yeah, we definitely could use a break. Um, why don't we write the failing test after break?
Sure, we can do that.
Biology is speaking to me.
Yeah. All right. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll write some tests for this example. So we'll be back shortly. So as a reminder, if you like talking about the stuff or have questions, deeper questions about some of the stuff that comes up, or even if it's not related to uh, the stuff we're working on, if it's related to Java or design or test-driven development or hexagonal or other separation of concerns, testable architectures, or IntelliJ, join the Discord. It's free. Lots of different channels on hexagonal architecture, not surprisingly. Also channels on domain-driven design and IntelliJ and test-driven development and testing in general. And we have a book club, which is always open, even if you're coming in the middle of the book. I still recommend, depending on the book, it's still possible for you to join. And the book we're currently reading is called The Programmer's Brain, and we're just getting into chapter 4, so still a good time to join. So go ahead and join the Discord if you're not already a member. And if you want to join the book club, just send me a direct message. Just click on find Jitter Ted, and click on that and send me a direct message. Say, hey, I want to join the book club, and I'll get you in there. And you can get access to the transcripts and recordings of previous sessions. So what we do is every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, which is now 5 p.m. UTC, after the time change. We get on a Zoom for 2 hours and chat about the book. And it's been really good, really interesting. The topic of cognitive load and learning and so on is near and dear to my heart. So some really good discussions. So join the Discord for the book club or just cuz, and that's it.
And the cognitive load learning stuff is infectious. So now
Yeah.
I'm interested in it because it's been talked about in the book club.
Yeah. All right. So let's write that failing test.
Okay, so we want to have a new one of these. It takes a header to start with that for now. And so what we want, what are the methods in column mapper again? Oh, extract column. I guess I could have done this. Only one method.
That's right.
It takes columns and column name. Control Shift Enter. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What does it normally look like? Oh, something like that. Okay. Oh, wait a second. No, it's an array, right?
That is an array. Yes.
So it's already parsed.
Correct. For purposes of this test, I mean, it really kind of doesn't matter because it's gonna pretty much. Well, let's put in some data. So you can just create the array directly. So if you do new string, yep, and then outside of the square brackets, put curly brackets. So this is the what's called the array literal form. And now you can just put comma separated strings.
So we want some real columns, or these we actually, we want real. Right, this is actually real data. So we would need something along the lines of not don't care, but along the lines of something like this.
Right.
Actually, we could just steal all this, couldn't we? Well, I don't know about the list of part.
Well, we can just drop the list of.
Yeah.
Because it'll be just all those as an array.
So something like that.
Yep.
And then we want to assert. Actually, extract columns has a var.
I think we just can say column.
Column, that's what I was leaning towards.
Yeah.
Okay. Assert that. Ah, that was too slow, too fast. Is empty, right?
You don't want column mapper, you want column.
Oh, I typed column, but then it auto completed. My bad. So let's see.
Is empty is what we want. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have everything we need? Oh, the column mapper argument is the header.
Right. So the header is tab separated. So we can grab that from another test. Without the \n though.
Let me copy it, then I'll delete it.
Okay.
Oh.
I just realized we don't need the new string. I think because it's been I so rarely assign direct stuff to arrays. I think the new string here is redundant. In some cases you need it, I think, but I think here we don't.
So we could just do
this is open curly. Yeah. Yep.
So I think we've got everything now. Should fail.
And by the way, for the folks who are watching, I did a search because I mean, we talk a lot about, you know, when you're coding, even if you're a quote expert or been doing it for a long time, there's stuff that you're not gonna, that if you don't use very often, you will forget. And so I forgot. I knew the curly braces were there, but I wasn't sure if we needed the new string, and apparently we don't. So I referenced the Java language spec and said, oh, we don't need that. So it wasn't that I knew that offhand. I had to look for it, and I've been doing Java since Java existed. So don't feel bad if you have to search when you're coding. All right. So what's our expectation?
This should fail. Actually, yeah, it should fail because right now we're not mapping. So it should throw an exception with an index of -1.
That sounds right. Look at that.
And it did. Sweet. So actually, I want to see, where did it throw that from? Line 15 here. Okay. Because at that point, there's no.
Because the index of their return -1.
Right. So that means we have to extract this to make it pass. into a var and do an if test.
Yes.
A local, I mean. When I say var, I mean a local variable.
Is there any other kind of var?
Well, the type var, which I don't like to use.
Oh. Yeah, I would never think that that's what you meant.
Yeah, I was trying to differentiate from that.
You'll want a double equal.
Yeah, I figured that out. Practicing my Control Shift Enter.
I noticed.
Okay, so is that good or no?
So we think that will pass. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. So
now we can think about refactoring.
Yeah, we do want to ignore. It's not an error. It's just we're ignoring a column.
We are saying that this is the behavior that we want. We're
Right.
saying if the column doesn't exist,
we just
we're just gonna return an empty string.
Empty string. Yeah. Okay. I just need to get my head back through that. And then refactoring. I mean, I was thinking turning this into a named method so it's clear what it means.
Yes, although there is an alternative, I think, which would be ask the header columns if it contains the column name. And so use that as the expression.
Right. And then run it, and it should work. Oh, it didn't. Interesting. It broke multiple things. So we're working on this one. Let's go.
So let's take another look at what we just wrote. So this is pretty common. We flipped our Boolean. So let's do it so yes, we could put a bang in front of that, but how about we flip the if contents. So return no.
Oh, that kind of flip.
Yeah, so swap out the return empty string with the return columns index.
Invert if condition.
You don't want to invert the if condition because right now the if condition is, well, you could fix it and then invert it. So put a bang at the front of the expression. And the test should pass. And now invert the if condition.
No.
Yes.
Is that right? Oh, I see it. Yeah, I didn't.
Yes.
The change was so fast, I didn't even notice. So it moved this into the if and moved that out inside the curlies.
And we could take the line 15 and move it inside the if block because we don't need the index if we haven't found it.
Oh, right. Yep.
And then delete that extra space and run our tests, and it should pass. Yep.
Sweet.
So it shows to Goyu that even a very simple thing, Booleans, they're rough. You get them wrong, but immediately we ran the test, and it's like, oh, it must have been something we just did.
Yep.
And so we didn't have far to look.
Would you inline this index?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Let's try it and see what it looks like.
Yeah, part of me likes leaving it the way it is, frankly.
Yeah.
Columns, header columns, index of. Yeah, I like that. Did you have a preference?
I didn't have a preference, so this is fine.
It's kind of a coin toss to me.
Yeah. All right. One thing that I'm a bit concerned about is our test setup above. The columns don't match the header.
Artist.
So I kind of feel like
we got the
that would
notes
be
missing.
bad. So let's change the header so it matches our data.
Meaning get rid of notes
Yeah, get rid of notes, and
and
the
the
rest
other
of the
themes.
themes and the contributor. And I'm wondering, do we want to test that uh, throws an exception or something if the number of columns that we pass into extract column does not match the header?
So if there's less header, that's definitely a problem.
Right.
If there's more header than columns, then we would just assign empty to the
Well, that's still a problem, right? Because if we're thinking that validated means you copied it from the spreadsheet, it must be rectangular.
right,
So if the columns are empty, you'll get just an empty tab, but there'll still be a column there.
right. We're assuming they'll do this, and there's no other way to do an
Yeah,
angular
yeah.
selection.
I mean,
You
you
can
could, but that would be
really
really, yeah, you could select
go.
individual cells. I think you have to press like on the Mac, you can do it. You can select just arbitrary cells.
Oh, you can.
Yeah,
Whoa.
but you're not going to do that, and that's not what we
Right.
want.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
um, and so the only thing where, and we've already tested where, like, if the final columns are empty, we still just get empty tabs. So I think we probably want a test that says, something about that the
What the heck?
what did you press?
I have no idea. So I was so busy looking at that weird OneDrive pop-up that
So we
um,
want to do something like uh, header columns header columns must match data columns is really what we're saying. And
is
so
it header columns count must match?
yes, that would be more correct.
Header columns must match. What was the second word?
Data, I don't have a
Data.
better term for it. Data columns, song columns, data columns.
I like song columns better.
I mean, nothing in the code below says anything about songs.
True.
Value or data, because I don't know any what else to call it. So
Yeah.
if you want
I
to use
slightly like
value, I'm fine with that. But
I like data
okay,
slightly better.
all right. And so I think what we need to say is, what is our outcome? Our outcome, I think in this case, would be we've done something.
Meaning we're expecting an exception.
I think
Or
right
is
now an exception.
this a positive test or a negative test?
This
So
should be a negative test. So basically, exception thrown when header columns don't match data columns.
yeah.
Header column count don't match data column count. And it's column singular, I think. Because it's column count does
Column
not
count.
match data column count.
Yeah.
Or you could just say does not match data. But this is probably more clear.
Yeah, I think leave it.
And your H in the when is uppercase.
Isn't it supposed to be that way?
Yes.
Thanks for catching that.
All right. Let's do it.
So we want to do grossly drop 2 maybe.
Sure.
I'll change that in a second. Actually, let's do a different one for a change. So I forget the syntax for checking for an assertion for a.
So we can say assert that. So back up on the parens. Assert that. I think in this one it would be just an illegal argument. So assert that illegal. Yeah, that one.
This one.
The first one. Yeah. And then enter and then dot is thrown by. And then the code up on there on line 29. No. We want the column mapper extract column. The method call is going to throw it. So do open close paren. So delete column. We want an open close paren arrow.
Okay.
And then grab the method call from 29. You don't need.
What I was going to do was like that.
Yep.
What I was thinking of doing was putting column there and then inlining it into that spot.
Well, then you should have done that.
Well,
that was way better.
That was just a try. Let me do it again. See if it works. See if my thought was good. So if I did this here, column, doesn't like it. So then we do inline. Still doesn't like it, but then I'd have to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, either both work.
It's a little faster.
I like it. Okay, cool.
So let's see.
This should. Well, we're not checking it, so it should.
It should fail because we're not throwing an exception.
It should fail because it's not going to throw an exception. Yeah.
So we expect an exception, but we don't get one.
Yep. Oops. No. Let me fix that before. Okay. Let's make it pass. Size? Apparently size.
Yes.
Took a few tries. Not equal.
So you can say THR and let it auto expand.
Oh, sweet. Do we pass anything on the argument for this one?
Well, our test doesn't require it, so no.
Yeah, so no.
We may want to do that, but right now our test doesn't require it.
Right.
As I say, we don't want to
add functionality.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the metaphor of leaning too far over your skis. Because then you fall into a tumble.
Yeah.
All right, so that passed.
Yes.
Let's have it give us a nice message.
Now, can we say?
Yeah.
With message.
Absolutely.
And do we want to stick with using a legal argument exception, or do we want to make a custom?
I think I'm okay with illegal argument.
Okay.
Because the message
should be clear.
Will be clear, yeah.
You always start them with uppercase, or do you do lowercase for messages like this?
I treat it as a sentence, so it starts with an uppercase.
Okay. You do a period because it's a sentence?
No, I don't think I usually do a period.
Okay.
But I think we want more information.
Oh, we
So
want to say what
I might stick in header column count of 3 does not
number.
does not match uh, does not match data columns data column count of 1, 2, of 5. Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not grokking it, but I'm not sure why.
What do you not?
Okay, data column 3 is release type. Oh, count of 3. First, okay. Never mind. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So this
Okay,
should fail
now,
because we're not getting a message.
yep. And I foolishly ran just that one. I want the whole kit and caboodle. Okay.
Yep.
Actually, I could do it from here easier.
Yeah.
Then we got to parameterize it.
Yep.
But would we wait to write a second test to do that?
No, I don't think I'd write another test.
Okay.
No, the length is not a method call
Ah,
because it's because it's old.
okay. And what's the syntax for, is it,
I think it's
it's not
just
this, is it?
no, that's for format. For exceptions,
Is it
actually,
something
I'm
like
not
this?
sure. I forget what exceptions do by default.
Because in C sharp, I know they do this.
I don't know if the parameter position matters or if you can just do open, close curly brace. I'm gonna have to go look it up.
I wonder if there's a quick fix, remove, redundant. Arguments.
There may not be such a
Oh,
constructor call.
we have
We
to
may
do a
have to do
format
we may have
externally.
we may have to do the format ourselves. That's why I was
Okay.
wondering, it's like, I don't for logs, that exists, but not for exceptions.
Okay. So now let's pull this all out.
Oh, you're pulling it out? Okay.
Oh, what were you thinking?
I was just gonna say dot format in line.
Ah,
So right after the close of the string, put dot format. And then the last two things become parameters to the dot format or formatted. And then delete, delete. Yep.
oh, interesting.
Yep.
Huh.
Because it's a string,
Learn,
it has a method called
right,
formatted.
right. Learn something new. And %s is correct.
Yeah, %s is for string. We could do
Oh,
%n, but I think it'll just do a 2 string on it, so it's totally fine.
is it in the Java world? Is it better to do it be more
I
explicit?
think it would be a %d. No,
D.
that would be for decimal. I just do %s because we're not doing any kind of math on it. And if we had string templates, this would be even easier. But those
the string templates an upcoming
yeah, and it looks like it might change quite a bit between its preview and the next release. I think it is currently, though, available if we wanted as a preview feature. Yeah, so so this is the current preview. But yes, they are going to change. There is talk on the mailing list about changing it, about moving away from making the processor be this str and just having it be a regular API call. So Brian, so there's quite a detailed discussion on that going on the mailing list if you're curious. But that's what we do. You do. So what do we think? We think this will pass?
Yes. So now, should we do a little mini mutation test? Should we remove another column?
Idea. Yeah.
And so let's take out title.
Actually, what I would do is
what do you want to do?
I think it is irrelevant what the column names are. So what I'd actually prefer is they be unnamed and just have like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Like that?
No, literally the word.
Literally 1. The numeral 1.
Or the numeral 1, but I might use the. It might be too hard to see if it's just individual digits.
Right. So you mean like this?
Yeah.
And then what? Add one more, 4.
Yeah. You want a tab though?
Oh, you're so picky.
I'm not picky.
The compiler's picky.
The compiler's picky, but not me.
Okay, so now we would change this to 4.
Well, no, what I would do is leave it at 3.
Have it fail.
And have it fail because it should now say. In fact, I might even add a column to the columns data so that we can see sort of both changing as expected.
Okay, I'm gonna run it again. So 5 should become 6.
Yep.
Which it does.
Yeah, I think the string template stuff is nice. You know, once folks get over the syntax, which eventually they will because they won't have a choice because the syntax is not changing. It's actually quite nice. Yeah, that is kind of the point of the compiler. Its job is to be picky.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna run again. Now it should pass because we increase the column count to 6. And yep.
So the syntax that people complain about is the backslash. Why don't you use $? Because $'s already in use. And if we use $, then that would break a whole bunch of stuff. And in fact, so this is the link to Brian Getz's email on the potential changes for string templates. And one of the things he says is basically, before he goes on to what the changes are, he says, I'll share my screen. I'll make this bigger. What has not changed is our view on the syntax of embedding expressions. So basically, he's trying to forestall like more complaints about it. It's like, oh, look, you're changing stuff, so please change the syntax for embedding expressions. Like, nope. $sign syntax is out. Backslash is what we want. Deal with it. All right. Switch back to you.
Okay.
But I recommend if you care about, and I say this a whole bunch, if you care about Java, keep up with the JEPs. And if you really care, subscribe to the mailing list. So there's a bunch of mailing lists where these discussions happen clearly. And it's really interesting. So this thread is quite has gotten quite interesting discussions on it. All right. So are we back to passing?
We are. I'll do it again. Yep.
So I think for line 28 also as well, we should sort of use sort of non-meaningful data. And here maybe we can use the digits because it's more clear. So it can be
digits
one, two, yeah. The reason why I didn't like it with the tabs is it's hard to read because it's all strung together. But here, since they're comma separated, I think it's a lot easier to read.
And the reason you're doing this is because the error message, you'll be able to see that this 6 matches this 6.
Yes.
That 4 matches that 4.
Right.
Makes sense. So actually, this would be setup. Right. It was like this, implying that was the action. But it's
really
what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that, so let's see. So yeah, I don't know. This is a case where the data is really an important part of the assertion. Like I'd almost inline it if it didn't make the if it didn't sort of hide the data a bit. But I think that this setting of the columns is actually part of what we're validating. It could certainly go different ways.
I see
but I feel like having it separate calls it out a bit more.
Now, would you do it this way because it's part of the?
I might, but then somehow that's harder to read. So, you know, readability trumps sort of pedanticness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the other option is we extract the lambda into its own thing, but I don't know. I think that might even be harder to read. Could try it.
You want me to try it?
Yeah, so do an extract variable on that. Without selecting.
This part, yep.
So we want the inclusion of the lambda part. Yeah. Yeah, so the type is going to be awkward because it's it's a throwing callable. So we could use var, but I don't like var, so yeah, I don't like it.
We tried.
All right. Do we want to do any refactoring now that our tests are passing? Oh, that's true. We might not even be able to use var because it would probably. What would it assign it to? Yeah, we wouldn't know, and it certainly would not be a throwing callable. Yeah. Even if it could infer some type, it would be the wrong one. So what refactoring do we want to do in our code?
Yeah, I'm looking. The only thing that's jumping out as me is we could turn this into an explaining method, but I think it's pretty clear without that.
So what I
What do you
generally
see?
do is when there's an exception being thrown as part of a check, that's a guard clause, and
Oh,
I
require.
extract the whole thing into a require.
Yes. What do you think? Or
Yep.
is that too vague?
No,
That's okay.
that's great.
Maybe require matching column count.
Sure.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot. I really like require
Yep.
guard clauses, which you can do with exceptions.
Yeah, if it was a return, then we wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
But if it's gonna throw an except like, if we that's the thing we had with, like, return a result, is we can't easily do the guard clause, although the result would have other benefits, but this is what we got, and so this is the way I would do it.
Makes sense.
All right, so we're handling both mismatch of column counts, so failure state. We are returning a I don't know about good default, but a default that we want if the column is not found. Um, I think that's it, at least for our extracted column mapper.
I mean, if we passed in a null header, would throw an exception, but do we need to test that?
I
We
don't
would
generally
find
test.
out really
I don't write
quickly.
tests for nulls. I assume no nulls, or nulls are being checked elsewhere. That at this
Right.
level, a null shouldn't have gotten this far.
That's kind of what I was thinking, because it's like if you got the code wouldn't work, right? It wouldn't even.
I mean, it would still throw an exception. So, like,
Yeah.
you'll get a null pointer exception, and since JDK 14, you'll actually get information about what caused the null pointer exception, and you'll get an NPE that says header was null, and here's the stack trace. Go figure it out. So I don't feel like we need to do anything special there. I think we can do a commit.
Okay. Um, what do you think?
Uh, sure. Yep. Hey there, Mohammed. What do you mean by n-tier architecture? Because it's already an n-tier architecture. Um, but often the definition of n-tier is confused with layered. So tell me more what you're asking about. So tiers versus layers is something that is often conflated. Um, I'm not sure why, but it is. Layers are code organization, tiers are deployment organization. And the two are not the same. So we currently have two tiers because we don't have a database, but the two tiers are often called client server. Since this is a web app, the client is your browser and this is the server. So it's already n tier where n is 2. If you're asking, are we going to add a database? Yes, we will add a database. But if you're asking something else, then I'm curious what you're wondering about. All right. Let's
Jira?
yes, we get to check something off.
I'm always in favor of dopamine.
Yes. Well, the great thing about TDD is we got lots of dopamines along the way.
This is true.
Just a steady drip of success.
True. Should we move to Jira 67 next?
I think so.
I rarely use overwrite mode. It's a hard habit to get back into.
Yeah, I don't I just don't bother because I'm always worried about being in the wrong mode. And so I just delete and add spaces.
Okay.
You could get fancy and select the first one and then do Alt J and then just press space, but I don't feel like that's any faster. So
we talking about modes
yes,
again.
we're talking about modes again.
Actually, it's top of hour. Should we make another quick break?
I
think we're shooting. Are we still shooting for noon?
Yes, we're shooting for a noon ending. So yeah, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll work on Jira 67.
Great.
All right. So just another reminder, in case you didn't know, one of the things that I do besides streaming is I do coaching and training. And so the kinds of things I help individuals and teams with is the stuff that you see us doing on stream, that you see me doing solo on my stream. So doing test-driven development, even in legacy code bases, it is possible. Doing refactoring, so you can get to a more testable code base. That's possible as well. And so I use two techniques. One is somewhat traditional instructor-led training, where and it's usually remote, although I can do in person, but these days most people are remote. And that's sort of a more traditional, uh, with me showing things, assigning labs, doing the labs on your own. Uh, and then that's mixed with learning ensembles where um, 4 to 6 people in a group, um, or at least I separate you into 4 to 6 people, and we do exercises together in what's called a mob programming or ensemble style. And that is very effective. It's a great way to learn, and we can either work on code bases that I have designed for learning things, or work on your code bases. So you can contact me. You can find out my contact information, ted.dev about, or you can just email me, ted@tedmyoung.com. So for in person, US is probably the only reasonable cost because I'm based in California in the US. But for remote training, I can adjust my hours to fit at least partially in the European time zone. So time zones are the main issue. But I tend to do no more than 3 hours of uh, sort of learning a day, because I think anything more than that, especially in a remote environment, is overwhelming. So feel free to get in touch and we can discuss that. All right. And we're back.
Woohoo! Make sure I'm not muted.
All right. So let's work on Jira 67.
Or do they go with the easier ones first?
Um,
or dive right into the
uh,
challenging one?
well, I think um, I kind of feel like I want to do the hard ones first and get those out of the way.
There is value in that, for sure.
So yeah, because it's like my although so it's interesting. It's like that's my general process when doing software development is what's the next thing that is where we know the least about or scares us, um, and do that one next.
Right.
Uh, on the other hand, we also here on stream have time limits, and so do we think we can do that in this amount of time? I think we can. So let's go for it.
Okay. And just to tag on to your riff about that, and the advantage about that at a more project level is you get your known unknowns
Right.
known
Right.
sooner, so you have
Yes.
a better sense of how long it'll take and how far you have to go.
Yep.
Versus waiting to the end, that's when you're really bummed.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, where are we testing this? Support these remaining columns.
So I think we have some disabled tests.
Oh, we do, don't we? I think there's a disabled empty test.
That
Well,
too.
there's two.
That one is the failure. And that one is the one we want. So I think that one actually that's the one where we tried to make it work by using the header that was passed in. And that didn't work for other cases, but I wonder,
I want to see if
let's
it
try it
works.
again. I don't remember if we've succeeded or not. So this will fail because we're ignoring the header. All right, so parse song pays attention to the header, parse all ignores the header. So now
Right.
we're going to parse all and actually don't assign an empty string, but assign the first element in the list in our parse all.
So actually, before we even can get to, well, I guess we could work on this, or we could make it so that it's working all the way up to parse all, right? Because right now
Yeah,
parse all is
I
not
think that maybe is our prerequisite. Yeah. And we'll probably get stuff along the way. Yeah, I'm not sure where the code is now versus the last time we tried this.
right.
Yeah, so let's
Okay.
try it.
So
I'm sorry, can you hit escape to turn off the selection?
yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. So right now it's just
Yeah.
using a blank. So we could promote that to parameter.
No, we don't need to. We want to grab stream list get first.
Oh, right, right.
Because that is our header. And now let's run tests and see how many break.
Only 9. Hmm.
So let's look at let's look at one of the orange amber failing ones. So what's the diff?
There is
Let's look
no.
at the next one.
Yeah.
Parse song with only one theme. Yeah, so let's click to see difference.
Oh, because we're not dealing with
Right.
release type and so maybe we have to do the simpler one first.
Well, let's take a look at this test because oh, right. Okay. So I think what we can do is we can use this failing test. Can we use this failing test to drive our behavior? Because I know what the behavior we need is, at least for this one.
Because it's still only one theme. So if we implemented
Yeah, so let's run this test in isolation. We expect this to fail because we're not paying attention to release title and release type. And now we can go fix that.
Yeah.
This is advanced an advanced thing because we've got multiple tests failing, but we are actually treating this test as a change in behavior test as opposed to, oh, we broke something, because we want this behavior to work. So now we can go into parse song. And now we can replace the empty quotes with the column mapper extract.
Would you extract this to a
Yeah.
local?
Yeah. Yep. Because that way we get the parameter name.
Yeah. So now if we run the test, it should fail a little bit less.
Yes. Yes. There should only be one
One
piece different.
diff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
that's true.
And that's great because it tells us we're on the right track.
Yep.
It's so funny that it's interesting that you didn't copy and paste the row above, which is what folks would typically do, and then sort of modify it. You basically typed it from scratch, but those who were looking closely noted that you didn't type that many characters because most of the work was done by the autocomplete.
Right.
And so I think it's actually a bit safer to do it from scratch. And in fact, in IntelliJ IDEA 2024.1, they now have the full line completion, which
Right.
likely would have completed the entire line, likely also with the correct string at the end, or at least something close to it. Because it would have looked at the variable name and presumably would have said, "Oh, you must want release type with a space in between as your parameter because I see previous instances of you doing that." So I think it's even less useful to copy and paste code when it's sort of this somewhat boilerplate.
It's true.
All right.
Run and should pass.
Now it should pass.
That's the prediction.
All right.
And it did.
So now if we run
Now,
all the only ones that should fail are the ones that are failing on multiple themes,
correct.
that are specifying multiple themes.
Of which there's 7. But let's see. Blank theme. That one doesn't have a diff.
That's yeah. So it's a multiple theme issue. So you can see like the actual has just thank you, whereas the expected has thank you, thanks, and gratitude.
Hmm.
So we can I'm curious what that parse song from tab separated values is doing. So
From a
that
test.
one.
It's
Oh,
also
so
multiple themes.
yeah, what I was confused about is it says parse song, and I thought it would call the parse song directly, and I was wondering why that failed. But it's actually calling parse all with one song.
Right. Let's rename that one.
So let's say parse single song or something. Yeah.
Would it be better to say parse all on single song? Because it still says,
Maybe.
well,
Yeah.
no,
You don't need to rename here because it's just a test name.
that's true. Parse
There's
all
yeah.
for single song.
Yeah.
Is that what we said? Yeah.
Yeah. So now we can use this test as to drive our behavior change. So if we just run this single test, this will fail because it doesn't have all the themes. And we can prove that using the click to difference. Yep, and it's basically missing the themes. So now we can fix that.
So that one, the way we're going to fix it is create songs with header. So we've got the songs. Oh, it's parse songs.
Yeah.
That is theme gets pulled out there. So this extract column. Yeah, that'll work regardless. So if we go back, nope, to here. Now, do we want it to be blank strings though, or the list? Are we going to have to actually, let me stop. We want the size of this list to be the number of themes. We don't want to have empty strings with
Correct.
themes that aren't there.
Correct. But
So
I
we're
think
gonna,
we can do that a step at a time. Since this one
okay.
has all 4 themes, the data, let's
Mhm.
assume that it always has all 4 themes. Then we'll run all the tests and find another test that will drive us to change that behavior.
Got it.
So here, I think you can actually duplicate the lines 4 times or 3 times.
I could have done the Alt J thing.
Yes. Yes. And then let's pass that into the list of.
I noticed it auto selected what I thought was the next one, which
Yes.
was, but I foolishly moved the mouse the wrong way. Okay, so if we run this test, this one theoretically should work.
Yeah, this one should pass.
Yeah,
Yep.
sweet.
So
Now
now
we
if we
run
go back
all.
to, so we should still get failures, but only for those that don't have 4 themes.
Ooh, we went to 12 from 7 failures.
Yeah, because now we're requiring
Oh,
all themes. So the ones
right,
that had anything other than 4 themes failed, even if so the ones that had 1 theme were passing before, but now they're failing.
right.
So
So which one will we use
now we
to
can go back to
drive?
parse song with only 1 theme has 1 theme. That's probably a good one to pick. And so now we can just run this test on its own.
Oh, actually, let's look at these attributes were blank.
So I'm confused by that error message. Can we go look at what generated that message?
Yeah, me too.
Ah, okay. So it's a little confusing when applied to theme, because it's basically saying one of the themes is blank. For other attributes, it would make sense, like artist is blank and song title is blank. Can we change? Do we have? I'd like it to display something like one of the themes instead of just theme.
Where? Oh, here.
Yeah. What I don't know is, do we have tests against that missing song attribute? Because we can't just go change code without changing a test.
Yeah, wait a second. So here. Oh, we're adding to it. Oh, and then
Right,
Pataki.
because we're
I got it.
accumulating. Yeah.
Right. Um,
Let's put that on hold because I don't want to push another
tangential.
change on the stack
Yes.
without getting back to green. So that makes sense that basically it's saying one of the themes was blank, which is absolutely true. And we'd like to fix that. So let's fix that.
But
So
it's
it's always,
actually
so it's
in.
always going to be parse song's fault.
Yeah.
So it's not column mapper's fault, it's parse song's fault.
Yeah, here we go.
So now what we need to do is we basically did theme 1, 2, 3, 4, assuming they all exist. Now we need to change that. So we might want to extract
that into
a method to make it easier to work with.
Oh, extract the list of
Well,
into a method?
extract the list of into a variable and then extract the variable plus the individual themes into a method.
Right. So that part there.
Yep.
And then you're saying this plus the list of?
Right.
So move them together.
Yep.
Confused by where the cursor is.
I know, that's why I really don't like the inline stuff, because if your scroll point is off, the new method that it's basically showing you overlaps where you actually can type in the name of the method.
Yeah, let me try it here now. Let's see if that helps.
I think that's
there we go.
Yeah, I think that's a bug they need to fix. It really needs to scroll line 49 into view so that you can actually change it. It's
like move 49.
Yeah. All right.
So let's see.
Extract themes.
Yeah, I like that. And now we would start doing like an add, like if.
So our not validation, but our requirement is that once we hit a blank one, we ignore the rest.
Oh.
Unless you don't want that as a requirement, which might be easier. It's easier to implement.
It's easier to implement the current requirement or not having it as a requirement?
No, it's easier to implement. If it's blank, we just ignore it, but we continue processing themes.
Would we ever have?
So do you ever have a theme in column 3, but not in column 2?
No.
My guess is not.
Yeah.
Do we want to support that, or would that be bad data?
Well, I guess the scenario where you could have it is like here. I decide later on that, this is only, later on isn't right, like that maybe this theme is not valid.
Mm-hmm.
Would I do that? I don't know.
I think the real question is, would it be okay if we allowed that?
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be okay to allow it.
In
in theory, we're doing this. Sorry?
Then let's allow it, because it's easier code.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Do we have that written down anywhere? That requirement about you must?
We might have if it's not written down, we probably have we might have a test for it, but it might be in Jira. Yeah. So yeah, so let's modify this method so we only add ones that are not blank.
Okay. Oh, blank versus empty. What's the distinction again?
Blank. So if you hit, I forget what it is on Windows. Is it Control Q or something? I know it's F1 on
Control Q.
Control Q. So is blank is if it only contains white space. So that's a bit safer. But on the other hand, we are only returning an empty string if we can't find it. So is empty
because our code is. Yeah. And I don't like the fact we have to put a bang here, but for now.
Well, gotta do what we gotta do.
Yep. Oh, right. We haven't.
So what I might suggest before we do this
Yeah.
is generalize this repeated code into a loop.
I'm guessing that it's not gonna. I got to do it manually. Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any way that it's going to figure. Yeah.
For each, because I'm not seeing. We don't care about index.
Well, there's no such thing as a for each. It's just a for loop.
Like old school, like with the int I equal kind of thing.
Well, depends on how we want to generalize it. We could do sort of string concatenation, and then in that case, we'd use an index loop. But I would find that to be harder to comprehend than looping through these headers. So what I might do is basically create a list of our theme headers and then iterate through that.
Like that?
Mm-hmm. And that's just a list of theme 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. And that could become a constant if we wanted it to, but for now, we put it here.
This is what you're thinking?
Yep. And now we can create the empty themes array list that we'll add to. So if you do theme headers.for, it'll write the loop for you.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. We haven't extracted yet. That's a little bit early.
Yep. Yeah, and then what we'll be able to do is likely convert this into a stream operation. Because what we're basically doing is we're mapping the theme header into an extracted from something else, but only doing if it's not blank. But let's see. We'll see how good IntelliJ is at converting that for us.
So
we can delete the rest of that. Yep. So what I might do is we could have done a bit of a prepare refactoring. If you comment out 50, basically the if part of the block, so 59 and 61, but leave 60 there. This is the pre-existing behavior where we're not skipping empty. So we should still see it fail because there were attributes that are blank.
Yeah.
Right. So that proves that this is equivalent. And now we can add in, oh, we don't want blanks. And now this should pass.
Oh, if I didn't blow up the code.
And it does.
It does. Okay. So now we would do all.
Yep.
Or IO free.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to 4 failing.
So now we had some additional constraints. And so we're seeing at least the song service test failing because we've got bad data. So we need to fix our tests.
You want to
Let's
go
go.
with song service
Yeah,
first?
let's go fix that one because that one's just wrong data.
Bulk add song fails. But what is it failing for? What are we testing here?
Yeah, so this one is basically missing the header.
Oh, because this is not right.
So this is an interesting question. We're currently throwing an exception, but really we should be returning a result.
So is the setup wrong?
No, the setup's right. It's just that we're throwing an exception instead of returning a failed result.
I see. So
Let's hold off on that one.
should we disable it or just leave it and move on to another one?
Let's just move on to the other ones that are failing in a different way. So why is this one failing? Aha, so here's our test that says we should have ignored this theme because there was a blank in
Ah,
between.
right. Or we change the
But
requirements.
we changed the requirement.
So that test might
Um,
be invalid completely.
so what I would say is let's make our code fulfill that requirement.
Oh,
And then we can, because I'm uncomfortable having to go back and now fix some of these tests. We're a bit far away from green. I want us to
oh,
get back to
I
green,
yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay,
and it's an easy enough change.
right.
So if you invert the if, you'll need to be on the if itself.
And then
Um,
make it a break.
yes,
Now run all tests
yeah,
or all IO free.
yeah.
That one
So
we
let's look at
expected.
what else is failing. So let's look at that test.
Oh,
Yeah, that wasn't very.
helpful.
That wasn't an interesting diff.
First, I'll return to multiple failure messages. It was failing actually. It was failing there.
Right. So basically, because we are not requiring 5 columns anymore, um,
Right. We need to make it test. So with the
so
requirements,
let's change. Hmm. I think we might need to disable this one until we change our exception to be a result failure, and then we can do the same thing with the bulk import.
sorry, you said enable once.
Uh, we return a result failure instead of an exception for
Right.
mismatched columns.
Okay.
Or mismatched column count. And the same disabled applies to the bulk import.
Should we go do it to that one as well?
Yeah. And that's likely the case for that last failure. Yeah. So that's the
That's a
same.
high level test.
Yeah. So that's the same thing. Same disabled. Yeah, it's interesting how both the result pattern and the exceptions are sort of infectious, and you have to go one way fully or the other way fully.
Hmm.
Um, Otherwise, you get into sort of now we've got an exception to handle, and we could fix it by just changing our data to still be wrong, but wrong in a different way. Um, but what we want is we basically want to get back to green, so we can then
Which we
move
are.
forward, which we are. Okay, great. Um, so now the thing we put on hold was if we hit a blank theme, do we want to continue processing themes?
Right. That was this part right here, the
Yeah.
break.
So we had a test that basically said, no, the rule is once we hit a blank theme, we ignore everything else. Um, we could leave it like this, or we could change our requirement because the code's just as easy either way.
Right. So I guess changing the requirement, well, not changing the requirement is the easiest because we don't have to change any code at all. We're done. Right.
Right.
Well, no, we have disabled tests.
Yeah, but that's a different issue.
Okay.
That,
It's a separate issue. Can
yeah,
you go say a little bit more?
because the other ones have to do with an exception that's being thrown.
Ah,
This is having to do with themes and how we
right.
process themes.
So how much more to switch this from break to continue? Would it remaining tests now work? I'll do that experiment.
Let's see. Yeah,
No,
just one test. Basically that one test.
just one. I mean, I could see a scenario where somebody accidentally or intentionally deletes a mid theme. If it's not too gnarly to implement it, I would say let's do it. That skipping is okay.
It's changing the continue to a break, and then we can convert it later to a stream API. So let's change our test to reflect our new understanding of our requirement.
This test,
Then,
the one that failed.
yes. So let's change the code back so that it passes. Then we'll change the test to be what we want.
Now just run this one test.
No, now we can run all of them.
Okay.
Because they're all passing, and there's just a bunch ignored. So here we want the list of, so let's change our last theme to be something other than ignored theme.
And then we would add to the list.
Yep. And then that'll fail. Because it won't have that one in it.
Right.
Yep. Fails as expected.
And now make it continue.
And now make it continue.
And now it should pass and hopefully not break anything else.
Well, we've seen it. We've changed it. We've flipped it a few times. So I was pretty confident that I was going to do that.
That was the only one. Yeah, true.
And now we can refactor that kind of ugly loop. Let's see what IntelliJ suggests. Yes.
Boy, that's long.
Well,
We'll reformat it.
But we'll reformat it.
Do you typically do it at the stream or after the first?
After the stream.
So there.
Yep.
Actually, I'm going to see what Control-Shift-L does.
Yeah, it won't do anything because it won't, unless you have a setting turned on, it won't force breaks.
Got it.
We can make this a little bit
read?
nicer. First of all, we can return this directly. So inline the variable themes.
Ah,
Yep. And we can change the filter to use the not predicate to make it a little bit easier. I'm surprised IntelliJ doesn't. Does IntelliJ offer to do that for us? So if you're inside there, does it offer that as an option?
doesn't
No,
look like it.
that's a bummer. Okay, then we'll just do it manually.
So the method reference, no, that won't work.
No, because it's going to extract a method. We don't want to extract a method. What we want
Right.
is, so let's do this. Remove the bang in front of the theme is empty.
Okay.
And now take its offer to convert it to the method handle version. And then surround it. So if you do, I don't know if a .arg will work here, but you can try it. Yeah, then you just say not. No, sorry, the word not.
Oh.
Lowercase n, because it's a static method on predicates. That one. So that should still work. Yep. And I don't know why it did collect. So Sweetie asks the difference between collectors to list versus a direct to list. It's pretty much, do we return a mutable list or not? But we don't need a mutable list, so we can just directly say, instead of collect, we could just say to list.
Like that?
Yep.
Nope, I'm not going to do control end. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it won't remove extra parens, unfortunately.
Got it.
Yeah.
Rerun.
Yep. Excellent.
Yep, that was true.
So that's much nicer than the for loop, I think.
Looking good.
So let's see. Let's do a commit. We haven't done a commit in a while. No, it's actually the other way around, Sweetie. So to collect, so collectors to list, I believe, returns an array list. I'm 80% sure. To list definitely returns an unmodifiable list. But I'd have to check what the does. Yes. The collectors to list uses an array list. Uses internally, it creates a new array list. Yeah. So I think what we've done is we basically support. We've actually finished both JIRAs. So supporting, we now support all columns and variable number of themes. Yep.
Okay. Do we have some parcel support here? header.
So I think there's one final step we need to do, which is I think we can get rid of that if block.
This one.
Yeah, so let's comment out 40 through 42.
See what happens.
And the closing brace.
Oops. Right.
And let's see what happens.
Ooh, we had one.
So yeah, so that one again
That's
is
interesting.
again we're throwing an exception instead of returning a failure result. Let's look at that.
Test.
Well, so let's see. Technically, that test is incorrect because it doesn't have a header at all.
Oh, yeah, good catch.
So, but it's just, but we
on.
still want it to fail for having not enough columns. So let's put in a 3-column header, not there because we're going to throw that away in the column mapper.
Right. So we're gonna. Oh, in the right here.
Yeah.
Got it. Do we?
So we want
names.
3-column headers there, and you can grab it from there on 174. Yeah.
That's 3. There's 2 songs.
So that'll still fail but it will fail with an exception instead of a failure message. But at least now the test is correct.
Just test this. Run this one.
We can run them all because only one was failing.
Okay.
So that one also needs to be disabled for the same reason.
Right.
Which you might have in your clipboard buffer with
Yeah,
Control-Shift-V.
That one.
Yep. Let's run them all. We should have a bunch of ignored, but all the other ones should pass. And they do. Yep. So now we can drop our commented out code, and we can drop the no longer needed string parameter from our parsing. And then get rid of the header. All right.
Another test. Make sure we didn't break anything.
Yep.
That was already automated, but just in case.
And so let's look at let's scroll up to the parse all and let's take a look at that.
Still a pretty freaking huge method.
Yeah, so we've got some refactoring we might want to do there. But I think this is probably a good stopping point.
Let's take a look at Jira.
Yep, so we can now close 67. And I think the only thing then left is convert our illegal argument exception to a failure result. And then we can undisable or re-enable our disabled tests. This code base too can be yours if you just continue to use extract method. I mean, in general, like yes, there's probably going to be a certain point where just extract method, extract method, extract method is not going to get you to a small enough method, but it can get you pretty far. But yeah, it's.
I mean, for example, could this?
It's 20 lines of code. That's a huge method.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Pretty friggin' huge. I gotta get the lingo correct. Would you consider extracting the stream into a descriptive method name? Because that's a big chunk of the line count.
I
What
might
do you
be.
think
So the reason why I'm not eager
to do that
to do that is I feel like I want to get result to the point where we don't have that if block on line 31, and that the entire stream process results in a result object. I still have hopes that we can figure that out. We probably could clean up the we could collapse 23 and 24, but that's kind of not.
Oh, just inline it, you mean?
Just inline header, yeah. But yeah. I like the name, so we could extract it all into, we could extract those two lines into a method of create column mapper.
Like a little
but again, it's
method?
like it doesn't get us. It's not attacking the meat of the problem, which is
right.
the stream and then if block, which is really the problem. Yes, the railway talk. Yep. I have to rewatch it. I haven't watched it and I can't remember when I watched it. All right. So I think so do we want to figure out what we want to do past fixing our illegal argument exception? Like what's our next set of features?
I think we were talking about getting it to
Is it
persist to the
database?
database. Yeah.
I think that's next.
Yeah. And I'll clean this up. I got some comments amongst our tasks that I should move. But I can do that offline.
Well, let's move the database up to above 74 to make sure we know that that's our next big feature.
So would that be outdented?
I think so. I think that deserves to be a top level
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some other things we did skip. Concrete.
Yeah, I would still like to do like a custom assert and maybe do a little bit more on the results. So maybe once we finish the illegal argument thing, that might provide us a good opportunity to do that, and then we can dive into the persist.
Pretend you didn't see that mode switch.
I saw no mode switch. Luigi was typing what we just said, so yes. Yeah, so I think let's make sure we don't forget to do so let's put some annotation next to certainly 61. I certainly want a custom, because we're going to be doing some more of those, and I certainly want a custom assert for result.
So for you, annotation is something like this, or do you mean something else?
Definitely something like that, but maybe only one instead of three. 3 has the connotation of we're doing that next. 1 is just don't forget to do this. All right. Look at that, and we're finished on time too.
Cool. And then was there anything else? No, this is just the parent. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I find it amusing that look, we finished on time. It's like, well, we always finish on time because we take small steps so we could stop at any point. So it's a bit of a cheat to say, oh, well, look, we always finish stuff on time. Because we always have generally, not always, but generally have a good stopping point, and that's what happens when you take small steps. Oops.
I was trying to say,
yeah.
And I might as well do a push.
Yes, please.
Oh, it failed on the commit anyway and push. Because those are ignores.
Right. All right.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right, so that's all, folks, for today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We don't have we don't yet have a scheduled next stream, so but it might be a little while because I am going to the Agile Open Northwest Open Space Conference next week. So that'll suppress our streaming for a bit. But as always, best place to find out about upcoming streams is on the Discord. Join the Discord.
Cool.
And yeah.
I wish I was going. I had too many things going on, so I can't make it up to Agile Open Northwest. I've heard great things about it. So if y'all are in the neighborhood,
if you're in Portland next week, go to the conference. You'll get a lot out of it, I think. So, all right. So he just says, which wasn't it? Well, on your content, you've got other cool stuff like Socrates of various sorts, the software craftsmanship open space conferences. So those are really good. Most of those are too far away for me. They're in like the UK and other places actually on continental Europe. I know there is one in Canada, but it's so far away. Like it's almost East Coast Canada, or it's like Toronto, I think, is the closest airport, but then it's like a drive from there. And so I'm like, no. And that's only a 2-day thing. So it's just not worth it for me to travel all the way to that. But look out for the Socrates ones in Europe. Those are really good. All right. That's all, folks. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.